The Locked On NFL Top 100 is here, and your Indianapolis Colts landed two players on the list, but a couple others, I'm not going to lie to you, they got snubbed. So let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. What is up, everydayers, newcomers, passersby? We welcome you all here. Anyways, regardless of how often you watch the show, this is Jake Arthur. You know me from horseshoehuddle.com. I'm your resident credentialed media member for the site. And today we are talking about all about the the Locked On NFL Top 100 that dropped just this morning at 10 a.m. We're going to talk about the recent history of the Colts in the NFL Top 100 out there on NFL.com, just to kind of gauge where nationally people see the Colts a little bit. We're going to talk about who got snubbed, but we're going to talk about these two Colts players that landed on the list. And that is, let me pull this graphic up here for you. It is newcomer cornerback Charvarius Ward at number 50. And you know him, you love him. He is probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. Left guard Quenton Nelson at number 56. No relation to his jersey number, of course. So let's talk about Charvarius Ward first, the highest ranking member on the list. So, of course, he is entering a new era here in Indianapolis. He has been with the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers throughout his career. His career really took off about 2019. He was actually UDFA, a really big success story in the NFL. But, you know, I oftentimes find that the Colts are very underrepresented in these type of lists, or they're just ranked too low. There's just kind of a general lack of what I feel is recognition or understanding of what the Colts have in some of their players. But even though Charvarius Ward is coming off of a down season there in San Francisco, it feels like, according to our me and our fellow Locked On NFL hosts, still got a lot of respect out there nationally. So listen to this. He is the number 4 cornerback on the list. And when I read off these names, it's kind of hard to argue about it. So Patrick Surtain the second, of course, is the first corner on the list. Derek Stingley Jr. and Sauce Gardner, of course, all very well deserving of being in those top 3 spots. And then, of course, you got Ward. After him, rounding out the rest of the top 100 list, you've got Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs, Devin Witherspoon from the Seahawks, Christian Gonzalez from the Patriots, J.C. Horn from the Panthers, Christian Benford from the Bills, Denzel Ward from the Browns, and Tariq Woolen also from the Seahawks. I do not hate this one bit. So Zach and I have talked about this a little bit before. Cornerback is one of those positions that's so volatile. Like, you've got a handful of guys, usually like 3 or 4 in the NFL, who are always going to be around that top 5, that top 10. But it seems like every year there's 2 or 3 or 4 guys that come in and establish themselves as big-time players, and they'll have a down year. It's just a position that kind of lacks consistency. So when you've got a guy like Ward or, Patrick Surtain, Stingley, these guys that have strung together success for a long time, then it really kind of sets them apart. Now, obviously, when I'm looking at this, I think of a guy like Jalen Ramsey, and I'm like, where is Jalen Ramsey? That, of course, I'm very curious as to how he did not land in this list. But you know what? I would say it's a young man's game, but, Ward is getting up there. He's about 30 as well. But still, nonetheless, a very productive player. So this is a guy with vast postseason experience. He has won a Super Bowl. He's been in another one. I think he's been in the postseason every year of his career except for one, if I'm not mistaken. He's been a second-team All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. He is a guy who it's very easy to see why the Colts wanted to prioritize him in free agency and why they gave him $60 million. So he is one of those big, long, fast, aggressive corners that is going to be physical, but not to the point where it's going to get him constantly in trouble with the officials. And he's also a guy who, this is one of my favorite things about corners, is very aggressive against the ball when it's in the air. Since 2019, when he became a full-time starter, Ward has the 6th most pass breakups in the entire NFL with 67. And again, that includes last year when he had a down year. Of course, he had a personal tragedy in his family that he has been open about discussing. Totally took him away mentally from just about everything. It's why he left San Francisco in free agency. Him and his family wanted a fresh start somewhere else, and now he feels rededicated. Without forgetting what happened in the past, he wants to kind of regroup and get a fresh start. And he's acknowledged that last year he was not there mentally. He was not himself, and he really did not have a lot of joy. But now he is finding that again. And hopefully, for him, first and foremost, him and his family get some peace and they can continue building back. But, for the Colts, they mutually reward each other with a bounce back season for, again, a guy who was an all-pro. So, again, sustained success here. His biggest peak really so far is about the early 2020s. Back in 2022, he was Pro Football Focus's number 4 ranked cornerback in the NFL. And then 2023, when he got that second team All-Pro, he was number 5. So a guy in the Colts who should hopefully fit in seamlessly. Again, this is a guy we had circled from the beginning as someone who you really needed to try and go out and get. I loved the postseason pedigree, but also the player. Again, big, long, fast, athletic, aggressive. This is a defense that's trying to turn over a new leaf in terms of its whole mentality. Get expectations and the entitlement out of there and get guys who are going to fight tooth and nail every single play and keep everybody else around them held to a high standard. And that is what a guy like Charvarius Ward brings. So love to see him in our Locked On NFL Top 100 here. Very curious to see if he still stays in the NFL Top 100 when the NFL.com list comes out. That is just, they're stringing that along a couple players at a time, I think, throughout August. It's already started now, but yeah, it's going to be going for a while. But not ours. We listed the whole thing today. So Charvarius Ward, here in a moment, we're going to talk about Quenton Nelson, a guy who is no stranger to this list. He's no stranger to best of NFL lists, and a guy who we talked about is probably going to wind up in the Indianapolis Colts Mount Rushmore one day after he hangs him up. So we will talk about Quenton Nelson here in just a moment. Summer sports are in full swing. We're going to flush that NBA season back behind us since it did not go our way, of course, Pacers fans. And whether you're all about baseball now, under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, it's fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm playing a same-game parlay or I'm watching a bet right into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I am part of the action, even though I very much am not. So if you're new to FanDuel, you new customers can go and bet just $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Just open the FanDuel app today and visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so let's bring up our beautiful graphic here again. Again, we are recapping the launch of the Locked On NFL Top 100 that dropped today. Cornerback Charvarius Ward in at number 50 and left guard Quenton Nelson in at number 56. So let's talk about Quenton a little bit. Just a guy who, as a guard, was taken by the Colts at number 6 overall. This was a big, kind of a leap of faith by Chris Ballard in just his second draft with the Colts. So the Colts initially were sitting there at number 3. Remember, they traded back with the Jets. The Jets took Sam Darnold. The Colts had other options there. They could have got Bradley Chubb. They could have got Denzel Ward. But they said, nope, we're going to take the guy who we feel is the absolute best player available. We don't care if it's an interior offensive lineman, what is considered not really a premium position. And by all accounts, Quenton Nelson has exceeded the hype that was around him. With his first 2 or so years in the league, he was an offensive lineman that was getting like highlight tapes made of him and shared all over social media. He was just you just don't see that from guys not named like Lane Johnson or Trent Williams, essentially. And Quenton Nelson answered the call and was immediately considered like the next best guard in the NFL after Zach Martin. So the guy answered the call. He is our number 4 interior offensive lineman on this list, and the number 3 guard. He is behind Creed Humphrey, Chris Lindstrom, and Joe Thuney. I don't really hate that. Creed Humphrey, I think, has done a really good job establishing himself as the best center in the league by now. Chris Lindstrom there with the Falcons, another really good player, a guy I loved coming out of Boston College, has been a great guard there for the Falcons. And Joe Thuney was with the Chiefs, had kind of a heroic arc for them going from guard over to left tackle when they suffered some injuries. Did not go super well for him in the Super Bowl, but they were kind of flying too close to the sun there, and he was their best option at tackle, and their luck kind of eventually ran out. He did get traded to the Bears this offseason to kind of reclaim his spot at guard, to protect Caleb Williams and hopefully get Caleb's career off to an even better trajectory than it was starting last year as a rookie. So I don't hate that. I think he probably could have moved Quenton up a little bit. I certainly feel like he's probably a top 50 player in the NFL, but coming in at number 56, coming in at a top 5 interior offensive lineman, I don't really hate it. We've seen more egregious examples of Colts players being disregarded before. Other interior linemen that he is in front of on this list: Quinn Miners of the Broncos and Elton Jenkins of the Packers. So I think it's pretty appropriate. If Zach Martin had not retired, he might be in there above Nelson as well, just because, again, the guy sustained such a high level play for so long. But let's get back to Quenton here. Pro Bowl every single year of his career, 7 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pros, including 3 with the first team. Now, while his Pro Bowls have not dipped, his All-Pro recognition has started to dip over the last few years. So I mentioned that his career started out like insane. If you're just to kind of try and put it in perspective, let's say Pro Football Focus numbers here. So as a rookie, he's the number 5 guard in the NFL. Second year was number 2, and then number 4. And then he started to have some issues, some injuries, foot, back. Like he started to get some things that followed him around for a little while. He then dropped to the 24th guard, and then he started to kind of ascend a little bit. He had that really, I think it was 18, 19, 20. So 2021, oddly enough, when Jonathan Taylor went insane that one season, was when PFF thinks Quenton really kind of took a dip, which is true. It was about that 2021, 2022 season. 2022 was ugly because Nelson and Ryan Kelly, it felt like they kind of had to babysit what was an insanely bad offensive line, and they kind of suffered as a result. But after that, Nelson started to really boost himself back up. 2022 was number 18. The following season, 13. And then 2024, the most recent season, he was back at the number 5 guard in the NFL. And while he may not, be that spring chicken who's just flattening guys left and right and dominating and putting up the highlight-worthy plays every single week, he is as smart as ever. He is a guy who is kind of a coach on the field, really an extension of Tony Sperano Jr. He's not going to get outsmarted. He is still a powerful player, still agile. If you see Zach on Twitter or our guy Colts Film Room on Twitter, you could still see them pulling clips of Quenton getting out to the outside and lead blocking for Jonathan Taylor and getting 20, 30, 40 yards downfield. Like the guy still got it. So injuries may have taken a toll a little bit there in the middle of his early career. But the guy is still among the best guards in the NFL, certainly a top 100 player. If you look at now, his run blocking has never been an issue. It's occasionally when you see a low light of Quenton, it's usually going to be in pass protection. But in 5 of his 7 seasons, he has allowed 2 or fewer sacks. has never allowed more than 5 in a season. And in that other season we're talking about was like 3. So he's never allowed more than 5 in a season. And more often than not, he's really only allowing like 1 or 2, maybe. He's had at least 1 or 2 seasons where he hasn't allowed 1 at all. So the guy is still as good as a veteran of his age can be. Of course, he's been in the NFL for 7 years now, so your body's going to take some hits, and you're not going to be the same guy you were when you were 21, 22 years old. But Quenton Nelson's still playing out of his mind. As long as the guy stays healthy, I mean, he's got good players next to him in Bernard Ryman and Tanner Bortolini. We're going to see how it goes with Bortolini, obviously. But I think when it comes to an older guy like Quenton now at this point in his career, he's kind of the OG of the line. Having some young energy like Tanner Bortolini next to him can really kind of help bring the best out. You know, he's not competing for a spot on the line by any means, like he's Quenton Nelson, but having a guy right next to him who is young and spry and super athletic, and, you know, his hair's on fire, and Tanner Bortolini, you know, those offensive linemen, they feed off of that kind of energy. So I certainly am still bullish on Quenton going into the season. I think 56 is a perfectly fine ranking. Again, I wouldn't really go much below that. I certainly think there's even room to go above it, you know, about 50 top, you know, narrowly inside the top 50 or so, just to keep it fair. I'm not going to be too homerish here. So kind of got a little bit of a more supersized next segment here. We're going to talk about what is the Colts' recent history with the NFL Top 100. Again, for Locked On NFL, this is our inaugural edition of it. You know, we figured we've got beat people all over the league. Why aren't we doing this ourselves? So this is our first year doing it. But, you know, the standard before this was the NFL Network Top 100 voted on by the players. So we'll give you the most recent, you know, last 5 years history of that. And where this year's list, at least to Locked On NFL, stacks up. Which Colts were snubbed from this year's list, and then who I think should be on kind of the watch list for 2026. We'll go ahead and talk about that in just a moment. All right, y'all. So let's go over this again. Last chance for this graphic here. Again, Charvarius Ward, newcomer to the Colts, comes in at number 50. Quenton Nelson comes in at number 56. 2 Colts representatives on the Locked On NFL Top 100. So let's just go. We're going to go over the last 5 years, just kind of give you a general gauge of where Colts players have ranked in the Top 100 list, the NFL Network version. So last year, it was not a great time for the Colts. Zaire Franklin was their only player, and he came in at number 100. So Zaire Franklin, who productive player, but easily not even the Colts' best player, was the only one on the list, and he came in at number 100. So that I didn't feel was great to see. It felt like, what are they watching out there? 2023, only one player again. That was DeForest Buckner at number 71. 2022 was a loaded list. Again, this was on the heels of the Colts' 2021 season with Carson Wentz, when they really should have made the playoffs, and they had a really good squad, but the quarterback position just was not what it needed to be. So they had DeForest Buckner at number 27. No, we're talking 2022. Jonathan Taylor, on the heels of that huge season, was in at number 5. Shaquille Leonard, number 18. Quenton Nelson, number 28. DeForest Buckner, number 66, and Kenny Moore, number 82. Love that list. Very well represented. The following year, 2021, this was after they made the playoffs with Phillip Rivers from 2020. You had DeForest Buckner at number 27. Quenton Nelson, number 33. Shaquille Leonard, number 37. Ryan Kelly, number 69. 2020 was another huge list. Quenton Nelson came in at number 29. Shaquille Leonard, number 50. DeForest Buckner, number 56. So let's talk about players who were snubbed from this year's list. So to go over it again, Charvarius Ward and Quenton Nelson, I think, are comfortably 2 of the Colts' best players. You could even probably say they are their 2 best players. But when you look beyond that, the Colts' next best players, I do think, stack up against some of the best in the NFL. And so for me, I look at it and I say, where is Jonathan Taylor? Jonathan Taylor just finished 4th in the NFL in rushing, despite missing 3 games, and he, without a shadow of a doubt, would have been 3rd in the NFL in rushing if he had missed just 2 games. He did not finish very far behind in yardage behind Bijan Robinson. So the other running backs that did make the list instead of Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara. So across the NFL landscape, you are starting to see people rank Taylor rather than in the top 5. He's starting to come in around 6 to 10, which I think injuries are one reason why people are kind of feeling that way. But again, the last we saw Jonathan Taylor, he was 4th in the NFL in rushing. And week 18, the final game we saw him, he had 180 yards from scrimmage. So, I mean, maybe he doesn't look like he did in 2021, but the guy is as productive as he has ever been. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson deserve to be on the list. Christian McCaffrey has been super banged up, so he should be on the list, but I mean, where do you put him? Jahmyr Gibbs, very productive player. It's hard to say he's not one of the top 100 in the NFL. Alvin Kamara, though, come on. What are we doing here? I don't think Alvin Kamara is still a better player than Jonathan Taylor at this point. I know he catches a lot of balls, but this isn't fantasy. Like, Jonathan Taylor should be in this list, I think, ahead of Alvin Kamara. Next up, DeForest Buckner. You know, I read off the last 5 years worth of players for the Colts in the NFL top 100, and he's been in it pretty much every year except for last year. This is a guy who plays through a ton of awful injuries, like things you find out after the season. You're like, how did you play with that at all? And he is very, very productive. Now, he did have that stint on IR after he had that high ankle sprain against the Packers. So that may come into play here. He didn't have the huge gaudy stats. But earlier in the offseason, I was looking at his season kind of at a glance, and I took what he did produce, and I put it in a per game average, and I extrapolated it over a 17-game season. DeForest Buckner had arguably his second best season of his career last year in terms of productivity, tackles for loss, sacks. Like, the guy was all over the place. He came back from a high ankle sprain that caused him to have to be helped off the field and go on IR and then go try and seek alternative treatments outside of the continental U.S. And the guy still came back and played out of his mind. Now, with that said, the defensive tackle position in the NFL, it's becoming very, very rich, I would say. Guys who did make the top 100 list: Chris Jones from the Chiefs, obviously, Dexter Lawrence from the Giants, of course, Jalen Carter, Cam Hayward. I'm considering Cam Hayward a D tackle here because he's an interior lineman technically. Jeffrey Simmons, Quenton Williams, Leonard Williams, Derek Brown. A lot of good names in the list, but I've got to say I think he should be in there. I think he is about on equal footing with like a Jeffrey Simmons. And Cameron Hayward is still very, very good, but he's a much older player at this point in his career. I think he's on a level playing field with, a Quenton Williams. I think better than Leonard Williams. Derek Brown probably could have been a little higher as well. So DeForest Buckner, for my money, you got to get him in there. The guy is still playing out of his mind through injuries. He has not shown any signs of slowing down, and he's a player that can truly dominate games, and we've seen it time and time again throughout his career. So I don't know. I think he is one of the guys in the NFL that is criminally underrated. But again, he just plays at a loaded position in the NFL, and that's why he doesn't make more Pro Bowls or All-Pros, which I hope when all is said and done and after he retires doesn't affect his legacy very much, because he's always been an absolutely outstanding player, but there's always just been a handful of guys who are more highly regarded. So certainly DeForest Buckner is deserving of being in the top 100. So that leads me now to talk about the watch list for next year. So I'm probably not going to include any like offensive linemen in there. Like, I don't know that Bernard Ryman's going to suddenly jump in there, Borderline or Gonzalez with a strong first year, because I think to catch the eyes of people nationally, you have to kind of play a sexy position or one that is statistically productive. You have to have you can also have some sort of high draft status. and just be very visible overall. So the guys I'm watching to potentially make next year's list, Tyler Warren, obviously, was widely regarded as the top tight end in the draft. Wasn't, he wound up going after Colston Loveland, but Tyler Warren, we made our bold predictions on yesterday's show, and I said he's going to score over 10 touchdowns. So as a rookie, if the guy goes over 10 touchdowns, I think he's going to grab a ton of eyes. I think the expectation league-wide is that within his first maybe 2-3 years, he becomes a top 10 or so tight end in the NFL. So I think that's within the realm of possibility. Kind of the same thing with Laiatu Latu here. Finished with just 4 sacks last year, but got to the quarterback a lot more often. Had 3 forced fumbles. So the guy was out there who's making those sacks count. Now, if he can find a way to finish and turn a lot of those pressures and hits into sacks and get the guys down, because as far as productivity goes, he is getting to the quarterback. He just needs to finish. I think he needs to get a little stronger as well. But if he starts this year, then he's going to be a guy that's on the field a lot more often than he was last year, giving him a lot more opportunity to get around those 10 sacks or so. So if you got a guy who's getting about 10 sacks in his second year, you're starting to get into Pro Bowl conversation territory, especially a guy like that knows how to find the football when he gets to the quarterback. So if he's getting 10 sacks, he's probably going to have about 4 forced fumbles or more as well, which that will create turnovers in a lot of instances for his team. Sometimes those will create, return touchdowns. The Colts are in a lot of, they only have one true primetime game, but they're in a lot of late window spots. So if you're seeing Laiatu Latu come up with big moments in these games where there's a lot of eyes nationally on the Colts, then I think that's going to be a big one as well. Again, him and Tyler Warren have the first round draft status and were considered very high-end players in their draft. So I think those are 2 guys that can certainly get it. Josh Downs, we talked about him yesterday. Zach had the bold prediction that he's going to go over 1,000 yards. I like that one a lot. I think a lot of people really like Downs, but because he's been injured and we haven't seen a true healthy season from Downs, especially with good quarterback play, which may still not get this year, obviously. But I think Downs is knocking on that door. If he's the focal point of the passing game and gets anywhere near that 100 catch and 1,000 yard area, I think we start to discuss that a little bit with him. Michael Pittman got there a couple years ago, and I think it put him kind of under a microscope as well. Now, obviously, he took a step down because he had the back injury last year, but I think a lot of people really like Josh Downs. And if he has a huge year like that and scores a handful of touchdowns, then I think some people will start to consider that, especially he's a guy that can create yards after the catch. So I think that is kind of a sexy, highlight-worthy thing that I think will turn some heads as well. My last guy on this list is Cam Binham. Just as easily as it could be Nick Cross, I'm going to say Cam Binham because I think, again, he's under a little more of a microscope. He signed a $60 million free agent deal this offseason, so people know he is a high-priced free agent. He's coming into this defense to be a smart player, but also one that creates big plays and turnovers. Everyone knows the touchdown celebrations and the turnover celebrations from him. So whether that's goofy or not, that gets people's attention. So if you've got a guy who is always celebrating these big plays that he and his teammates are making, there you go. People are going to hold him in higher regard. I already think that has been part of the thing that's catapulted him through free agency, not to teams. Teams are only going to sign him based off being a good player, but a lot of people know Cam Binham fan-wise across the league because of the celebrations and the big plays. So some of it is very stupid, trivial things that will get guys on the map, but it's true. They are real factors here besides just their big play. Now, the big play is obviously going to breed more of those things that are going to turn heads and kind of get people's eyes on them. But I think those guys have a strong case to be on the list for next year. We'll certainly see how it goes. You guys know me. I'm going to try and be real, but a little more on the optimistic side as well until we see otherwise. before I start getting out my pitchfork and my fire there. All right, so that is it for us today, guys. We will be back with you tomorrow. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. Obviously, the Locked On NFL Top 100 is here. You've heard me yap about it here. But now you can go and listen to it all on Locked On Sports Today. They're going to break down 1 through 100. There's going to be an NFL squad show debating placement of a lot of players as well. You can check that out on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Keep your eyes peeled for that because it's definitely going to bring some spirited debate. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get the inside scoop, what's going on with the Colts, what are your burning questions that are keeping you up at night? What are your shower thoughts about the Colts? Send them to us. We love to chat with you guys. We'll spitball with you and just figure out what we think about the Colts as well. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2 on Twitter. We are also on TikTok and Instagram as well. Also, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love those ratings and reviews as well. And with that, we will see you guys tomorrow.